Welcome to our channel Smart Career Goals. In this channel, we make contents on various career opportunities. Namaste to you everyone. My name is Srinivas and I am the founder and CEO of Smart Sutra and Smart Career Goals. Today's topic is Startup as a Career. And this is not a regular video. In fact, it is going to be a podcast. After 3 years, I'm going to do a podcast with a very special person. His name is Dr. Prakash Mugli. He is an award-winning entrepreneur, founder and CEO of Energy Group. He is a TEDx speaker, a microwave expert, and most importantly, he is a startup coach. So let us dive into the podcast now. Prakash sir, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you, Srinivas.
So let us begin, sir. You being a startup expert, I will ask you very simple question to begin with. There is a lot of
Definitely.
myth in the students community. There are
Mhm.
students who are starting a pani puri stall, a tea stall, and they call themselves as a startup founder for it. So what
Mhm.
is the real difference between a business and a startup? Because most of the online gurus also say that if you are a YouTuber, even that is a startup. If you are an affiliate marketer, even that is a startup. I want your views on these things.
These definitions are not very strict, in my opinion. Anything that you are starting on your own, you could call it as a startup,
Okay.
where you do not depend for your livelihood on a fixed salary coming at the end of the month, and you are creating your own revenue source, in one way or the other. But having said that, a lot changes when you want to call it as a business. When you go from the early phase of doing something on your own, and depending on your own competency for generating these revenue sources, from there to setting up a business where there is a predefined process, a business process that is running independent of you being part of that or not, and it's not completely dependent on you to that extent as an individual. That's when it becomes a business, where it
Hmm.
becomes a machinery, where it becomes an auto loop. Things are running, and of course your presence as a leader pushes the things forward, but you are not required for the business to survive as such
Hmm.
in the short run.
Hmm.
So that way, business can be little different from startup.
Yes.
But yeah, anything that you start on your own without depending on anybody's commitment of a salary can be termed as a startup.
Now, someone takes a franchisee model of a tea stall and he
Yeah.
starts. Will that be a business model or a startup?
It could be probably termed as a small business that you're
Hmm.
starting,
Hmm.
because that franchisee creation is not done by you.
Hmm.
The whole concept of franchisee, or the whole process of coming up with an idea and then giving it some shape
Hmm.
and giving it some structure
Hmm.
and proving it in terms of a revenue model, and after that proof that somebody has come to you to sell the franchisee. And
Hmm.
when you take the franchisee as a franchisee owner, not as a franchisor, when
Hmm.
you are a franchisee and you take that model, you're basically taking a proven revenue model
Correct.
and you are becoming part of that.
Correct.
So, in that sense, I wouldn't call it as a startup.
Hmm.
But is it an independent business where you are starting and you are generating your own revenue? Yes, it's a small business you are getting into.
Correct.
And apart from the fact that it's a proven track record, it's a proven business model,
Hmm.
just everything you have to manage on the operational level. So,
Hmm.
yes, it's a business, but perhaps not a startup idea.
Okay. So, give some glimpse about your time when you started. I believe you're also an engineer. I am
Yeah,
sure you
yeah.
must have had a small job also. So when you started, where your parents support you, from where you got the money, was it a business, ready-made business you took, or please tell in a nutshell about your journey.
Well, it was definitely not a business that I took, and it was not clear to me what it is when I started. I did not
Hmm.
know I'm getting into business or I'm starting a startup in those days.
Hmm.
These words like startup, I wasn't aware. I can say at least I wasn't aware. The ecosystem was also not so vibrant and so widely spread.
As of now,
Um,
yeah.
and also, I was not part of any ecosystems either.
Hmm.
Organizations like TIE or various incubation centers, they did exist even then,
Okay.
but I was not connected to them. So
Hmm. Hmm.
2002 is when I started, and
Hmm.
coming
Hmm.
out of a engineering college, a fresh graduate, like everybody else, I seeked job. I had a couple of jobs already in the campus recruitment.
Hmm.
I was selected in Air Force as a technical officer. I was selected as a junior programmer in Mahindra British Telecom,
Hmm.
but chose not to join both of them,
Hmm.
and wanted to look forward to something that would keep my interest on electronics hardware alive
Hmm.
through working on circuits, working on ground level technologies. And
Hmm.
with that interest, when I went to Bangalore, I was staying with my friend Nilesh at that time, and both of us were aligned on developing something.
Hmm.
So the job that I was hunting for is somewhere where I can work on my skills as an electronics engineer.
Hmm.
That was the passion,
Okay.
and found a place where the salary wasn't an attractive
Hmm.
factor,
Hmm.
but the kind of work that happened there was exactly what I wanted. When I
Hmm.
entered that workplace, it was a small shop floor with three people working.
Hmm.
One was, a seventh standard lady, and I mean somebody who had just studied seventh standard.
Hmm.
Then the others were ITI people, and the owner was a retired scientist from NAL.
Hmm.
So when I entered that, looking at all the instruments, the circuits, the boards, and everything, I was like fascinated. Okay, this is the place I want to be.
Hmm.
Started my career with that.
Okay.
And very early on, something like about a year and a half down the line, where I had changed my job twice. I
Hmm.
worked in the first company for 10 months, in the second company for a couple of months, where I worked on some microprocessor technologies. And then the third job, also hardly about 2 months I worked. And in the third job, I worked on some PLCs and HMIs and SCADA and stuff like that. All of it sort of made me, get an overview of different technologies.
Hmm.
And right at that time, me and Nilesh were working on one project for Polyhedron, and Undre sir was all the time guiding us.
Hmm.
So with that zeal, I said, let me quit job
Hmm.
now and
Hmm.
give my full time to this project.
Hmm.
And without knowing that I'm getting into a startup and business, I jumped into it. And then
Okay.
the life taught on its own when we moved on forward from there.
Hmm.
That was in
Hmm.
2005, early
Okay.
2005, December 2004. I decided to quit,
Hmm.
and I quit in December 2004 from the formal job per se.
Hmm.
Not that the job was giving any great salary. My first job was 1,500 per month, and the
Hmm.
last job was 2,500 or maybe 3,000 per month.
Hmm.
So it was not very hard to decide to leave the job. Unlike most people who are earning fat salaries,
Hmm.
and it's tough to take that call.
Yes.
I
Yes.
had an easy choice to make, I think. So
Right.
whether 3,000 rupees per month and give my full time to a job, or no salary and give my full time to something that I love.
So you started alone, or there was a co-founder with you?
Yeah, so me and Nilesh, we always worked together in the early
Okay.
days. He used to work for government organization NAL,
Hmm.
and we always discussed as co-founders, and we've been co-founders in the true sense.
Okay.
Um, we started together. We were living together. We were working on these ideas together.
Hmm.
So we began our career together in that sense. And
Hmm.
I quit the job first, and subsequently, after few months, he also quit.
Okay.
And we did not have clarity of how we build a startup at that moment of time. We did not have any guidance and mentoring, to so to say, which I believe is pivotal to the success of any idea, that you have the right direction, whether
Hmm.
with the help of some ecosystem, or whether with the help of some mentor or coach, something. If it gives you a perspective of how do you build a startup, and how do you keep yourself focused on a product or a service, we
Hmm.
missed that. And
Okay.
that took us everywhere. That took us to multiple domains, that took us to multiple projects. And it had its advantages that we learned a lot, but it definitely could have been more efficient, had
Mm.
we had the right guidance in those times.
Yeah. But did you have funds initially? How did you manage the funds? Because I'm sure you must have not asked for funds. There is no pitching
No, no, no.
system.
We did not go for any external funding. I
Mm.
remember, we were working on one of the instruments, and we had one gentleman whom we had met in
Huh.
one of the tech fests during our college days.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And he lived in Bangalore, and he said, if you need any help, you come and meet me.
Mm-hmm.
And both of us went and met him. He showed interest to come to our factory. He saw the zeal that we had, and he offered to come in as one of the mentors and early investor.
Mm.
Um, but at that point in time, we thought, why should we dilute our stake? Why do we need to,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
get it somebody else? So
Mm.
we chose not to opt that.
Mm.
Perhaps that was one of the many mistakes that
Mm.
we did as
Mm.
entrepreneurs,
Mm.
which definitely costed us that money which would have come, but also
Mm.
more importantly, it cost us that experience that he would have
Mm.
brought in as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. So technically,
Correct.
both of us were exceptional.
Mm.
I feel proud to claim that.
Mm.
He is from mechanical, I was from electronics. Both of us were very deep into our own domains,
Mm.
but together we lacked that vision as founders, as entrepreneurs who would work on a scalable idea with a solid foundation of a business model.
Mm.
So funding was purely pumping in whatever we were able to generate from the business,
Mm-hmm.
and from family and friends we generated small amounts of funds.
Okay. Okay.
My uncle, Mr. Maruti Kono, he supported with the initial seed fund of I think around
Mm-hmm.
30,000 rupees,
Mm-hmm.
using which we purchased our first CRO instrument to
Mm-hmm.
measure.
Mm.
And then we were working on some projects, and we were getting money from that, and then we were going on. And then early on we also started banking with SBI, and we had a small cash credit limit from there.
Okay.
So we started like a very traditional business,
Business.
going
Mm.
with debt from
Mm.
friends and family and a bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, most of them say that uh, pitching should be our last idea. The way you started is supposed to be right. Like if you have money or ask your family, and then in the worst case, you have to pitch. Is it right?
No, can you elaborate? What do you mean by that?
When I have an idea and I have fund,
Hmm.
or else I have a family who will support me, or some family friend will support me. Should I
Hmm.
take this support, or should I go and ask for the angel investors, or go and ask for some funds outside?
No, so if your idea is, ready for pitching, and if you
Mm.
have the clarity, how do you want to build it? I would
Mm.
always vouch for going and pitching to an angel,
Mm.
uh, which is perhaps the first step for
Mm.
any entrepreneur to go to ask for funds.
Mm.
Simply because when an angel investor evaluates you as an
Correct.
entrepreneur and
Mm.
your business model,
Mm.
he will not be biased by any personal, dimensions.
Correct.
Your friend may want to give you money because he want to support you. Your
Yeah,
family may want to
emotionally
give you
support.
money
Yeah.
because they don't want you to get disappointed in life. So they will say, "चलो
Correct.
क्या होगा? ज़्यादा से
Mm.
ज़्यादा कुछ रिटर्न नहीं आएगा या पैसा
Mm.
चला जाएगा." So they take a
Mm.
measured risk of supporting you.
Okay.
Seldom it will happen that they will grill you to refine your business model. They won't do that.
Mm. Mm.
But a
Mm.
professional investor will do. So if there is a choice, always go to a professional investor,
Mm.
pitch him your business model,
Mm.
convince him that his investment is worthwhile and your business idea is worthwhile to invest. If you can
Correct.
do that and get some funds from an angel,
Mm.
nothing like that.
Correct. You also get
Perhaps your
validation,
family,
right? You also get validation
it's a
to the
validation.
service
It's a
or
validation,
product.
a very good
Mm.
validation, and perhaps your other family and friends can
Mm.
join hands. Once you
Correct.
have got the endorsement from an angel investor, you
Mm.
could always offer the same stake or same valuation to
Mm.
other friends and say, "I have this professional investor pitching in. He's bringing so much. I need
Mm.
some more. Why don't you also come in with the same
Correct. Correct.
valuation?" Yeah.
Yeah. So, as a
So
career counselor, a lot of my viewers are students. So,
hmm.
what would you advise students, especially graduating students? It could be BBA or even engineering. And these days, there is buzz of Shark Tank. So then on, people who had mindset of UPSCs are shifting towards startups these days. So what
No,
qualities
yeah.
should they have, or what are the projects should they do? Where should be they investing their time and money while they are studying?
So, just quickly touching upon Shark Tank, I'm really thankful for the fact that Shark Tank has managed to spark this interest in the youth that startup is also something,
Yeah,
and startup gives a different kind of recognition and a career path.
correct.
Having said that, I would caution the students or any person who wants to be an entrepreneur uh, to be not really heavily influenced by the programs like Shark Tank,
Hmm.
because that's not the only reality of founding a startup and going ahead with building that idea. Perhaps a very small percentage of the founders would get to participate or be part of such a showbiz where you are going and pitching and then things are shown to you in such a beautiful manner. But believe me, the story behind is much harder, it's much more tougher, and
Hmm.
it's much more grilling in that sense.
Correct.
If your business idea is worthwhile and you believe in it, then no
Hmm.
matter what attraction you get, or no matter how isolated you are
Hmm.
from the uh, showbiz or from popularity, you should go ahead and make an attempt to build something on that idea.
Correct.
Secondly, if you can get access to some ecosystems around you, please do that. Go and participate in any events that happen through organizations like TI or any startup incubation centers around you, any
Hmm.
startup programs around you. Be part of it because it takes you closer to the community.
Hmm.
It takes you closer to those people who think different from a job holder. It
Hmm.
takes you closer to those people who are chasing their dreams.
Correct.
It takes you into an environment where failing or having troubles is not looked at as something negative, because
Hmm.
everybody is facing them. The talk there is, it helps you grow, it helps you discover, it helps you understand things better.
Hmm.
So I would urge all the youngsters who are looking at entrepreneurship as one of the options to actively participate in such activities around them.
Hmm.
Read about it. You have so much of content available on YouTube. Look at that, experience different founder stories, how they built,
Hmm.
how the
Correct.
whole story came along. Because when you discover that the greatest of the things were built in the simplest of the environments
Hmm.
and by most average, so to say, human beings,
Hmm.
they weren't all very exceptional in their competencies in schools or in education system, but they still excelled as entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
So that is not a limitation. I mean, if you are good, it's very good. If you are an
Hmm.
exceptional student and you are considering to build a startup, nothing like that. Fantastic.
Okay.
But
Hmm.
even if you are not, that
Hmm.
doesn't deter you, that doesn't stop you from succeeding in your idea. So don't
Hmm.
take that academic success as a barrier.
Hmm.
Go and work on your skills, your interpersonal skills, especially. It may be communication skill, it may be your skill of persuasion, your skill of team building, your skill of putting across, asserting your viewpoint, your skill of being bold, your skill of building on an innovative idea. So
Hmm.
all these are skills that simply don't depend on your academic success or your academic prowess.
Hmm. Correct.
So that's what I would say to the youngsters.
Sir, I recently met a client of mine who was
Mhm.
finishing his engineering. He said, "Sir, I'm confused between the campus placement or railway or SSC job, or I also have plans to have my startup." He asked me what to do. Then
Mm,
I want to tell you my view here. You can add on yours. I said him the most easiest option would be your campus, because campus is something where companies come, they have their goals and they take you all. The second easiest could be startup rather than SSC or railways, because SSC railways here in India, the success rate is 0.1%. Whereas if you start exploring ideas, you will learn a lot of skills. It could be digital marketing. You may end up earning coding, how to develop a product. So many things you end up doing for a year or two that you will be hired later also. What is your view on this, sir?
So one point that difficult path does not mean better path.
Yeah.
So number one. Number two, if I get flown or get drawn into some path or the other because I just want to try everything, and then let's say I end up giving an exam in railways and I get selected. Like what happened to me, I just wanted to try out SSB interview, gave that interview, went to Mysore, gave that 5 days interview there, residential interview that went on and got selected. So if I would have said, now that I've got selected into Air Force, which is so difficult for many people, right? I've got this opportunity and I should take it up. Now, in the same way, campus recruitment. Even campus was like, okay, everybody is giving campus exam, so let me also give that exam. Gave the exam, interview, got selected into this private company. So there also the thought process could have been, now that I've got selected, there's a very good salary. Let me get started with this career and see what happens next. But what appealed to me at that point in time is that in both cases, I am not going to work on what I love to work.
Correct.
When I checked about the job profile, because I was curious, I asked the Air Force interviewer, what I would be working on once I joined there. Similarly, I also spoke to these HR head from MBT and asked him what I would be working on if I joined the company. And I feel I reasonably understood the job profile. And that understanding made me very clear that I'm not going to be enjoying what I would be doing there. So I said, let me rather choose to do what I love, and went to Bangalore and took up this job of 1,500, which was 1/10 the salary of both these jobs that we're offering. So I think at some point in time, it becomes very crucial for you to make a bold choice of what you love to do.
Correct.
And if you visualize getting into a government job and what kind of life they would have, go and meet a couple of such IAS officers or government job holders and talk to them and ask them what kind of life is there. And I'm very carefully choosing my words because none of them is better or worse.
Correct.
All three are have their own ways of serving the nation, have their own ways of succeeding in life, have their own ways of earning money for yourself. So nothing is better or worse. It's just that what you will sing, your personality.
Correct.
What does it enjoy? Does it enjoy everyday challenges? Does it enjoy everyday uncertainty and overcoming those challenges? And does it enjoy creation of something new when there is nothing set, no pattern is established, you want to come up with your own? Then perhaps a startup and entrepreneurship is made for you.
Correct.
Right? But if you are somebody who love to walk on an established path and excel in that path, then perhaps a job is better option for you.
Correct.
And if you are somebody who want fast growth according to your competency, quickly you want to rise up the ladder of the culture, and you want to depend only on your personal capacity for that, then perhaps a private job is better because there you're recognized quickly. And if you are an extraordinary person, you grow to heights very fast. Unlike in the government setup, where irrespective of how bad you are or how great you are, there is a speed. Of course, there may be different growth rate for more extraordinary people.
Correct.
But the difference in growth rate may not be so much as compared to a private sector. So these are the factors I would say that a person should account and take consideration before he makes the choice.
Especially in India, sir, where students are trained with employee mindset and security mindset. So these days, privatization is happening and students are scared. They're blaming government because there are no government job. What's your advice for these students?
You go again. You're saying, what's your advice for
the students
jobs
who are into mindset of security, not growth? Okay, and they are more into security mode, and they are not happy with the way the government is dealing with government. They are making a lot of privatization happening. So what's your view on students who are not happy with?
Not
Yeah.
sure. I'm not
Mm.
sure. I'm not updated about this situation about whether students are really looking for security.
Mm.
My personal feeling on that is that perhaps no, because the overall atmosphere is making them be much open for dynamic situations.
Mm.
Uh, I may be right, I may be wrong. If
Mm.
they're still looking for, if there is a still, maybe there is a small percentage of people who might appreciate security or job
Mm.
security, and
Mm.
that may be arising from their earlier generations and
Yeah.
the conditioning that they have had. In the today's generation, I think
Mm.
unconventional career path is not very uncommon. I mean, people
Mm.
are open to working from home. People are open to be a freelancer. They are
Mm.
taking up options where they are working for 2 or 3 different companies in a shared basis. 2 hours I
Mm.
work for this company, 2 hours I work for the other company. And incidentally, the companies are also open for such an idea. They
Mm.
no more want dedicated employees who are only working on their projects. Maybe yes,
Mm.
some portion of it, but certain peripheral activities they are open
Mm.
for candidates to work on partial basis. That way they're able to also control their costs, and on the other side the candidates are able to earn more by earning from different channels, taking up
Mm.
freelancing, taking up startup ideas. All this is making me believe that this generation is definitely more open
Mm.
to unconventional work culture and unconventional career, which means there is lesser security or lesser predictability. There is,
Yeah.
once you are a secure job, everything is predictable. Your
Correct.
salary date is predicted,
Salary
your
date.
amount is predicted, your routine is predicted. Nothing is going to change over the next 5 years, 10 years. If you are in a
Mm.
government job,
Mm.
it's an assured job. But that is not the primary factor, I think, for the people.
Mm.
Uh, you'd perhaps see that they want to work less, enjoy more.
More.
They want to work less, earn more,
Mm.
right? So these are things which are possible only in a unconventional path,
Correct. Correct.
where you're willing to take a certain amount of risk as far
Risk.
as your career is concerned.
Correct.
So I think so. It is already changing,
Mm.
and more ecosystems like these startup incubation centers or
Yeah.
startup mentoring setups. All this
Mm.
is going to only increase that
Mm.
effect on the
Mm. Mm.
youngsters.
So to tell us more about incubation center, and you also have Vigyan Manthar in Belgaum.
Yeah,
So tell us more
yeah.
about these also, for especially for students. How are these helpful for them?
Yeah, so any environment, if you are targeting to become an IAS officer, it's good you keep interacting with people who have already succeeded in cracking that exam, and they will share experiences for you to understand how do you go ahead with that thing. In the same way, if you are trying to build something, you're working on some idea, then it's best that you spend some time with fellow beings who have already started that journey, or who have succeeded in that journey, or who are excelling in that journey, whatever
Mm.
it is. But
Mm.
if you become part of the community, it helps. And what are incubation centers? They are exactly this. They are places where startups are collectively given some infrastructure where they can operate from there, because early stage it's difficult to go for your own facility, your own place, your own infrastructure,
Mm.
invest on all that. It becomes difficult when you are still not very sure about your idea. So it's best if somebody has the infrastructure and you just pay a nominal amount as long as you use that infrastructure. And that's what
Mm.
is an incubation center. You
Mm.
have place to work, you have some infrastructure, common facilities, and you pay on as you use basis.
Okay.
In addition to this benefit, you
Mm.
also get access to a lot of expertise coming in
Mm.
from successful entrepreneurs.
Mm.
Depending on where you are and where is this incubation center, the quality of that mentoring and the guidance could
Mm.
be much higher, right? So for example, if you take up any local college or any regional colleges, also institutes also are now housing incubation centers where they're trying to do their best to provide
Mm.
this environment to the startups. In the
Mm.
same way, you have incubation centers in IITs, in IIMs, and
Mm.
those organizations have access to some of the best brains in the world
Mm.
of entrepreneurship.
Mm.
So, in that way, we also have started a small initiative in Belgaum called Vigyan Manthan Foundation.
Mm.
And under this, we have an initiative called as Startup Laboratory, where interested startup founders, they gather together frequently. They meet every fortnightly, and there are various knowledge sessions coming in
Mm.
from various members of this
Mm.
community.
Mm.
And at the same time, there is debate, there is discussion, there is Q&A, where the understanding of various aspects is refined, and
Mm.
everybody sort of carries home some kind of a lesson from these interactions. So what
Mm.
it does is it only helps you to become clearer about your own business idea.
Mm.
So that's
Okay.
what is the whole goal, to come
Mm.
there, be part of such communities.
You said some fees, or what could be the fees in any incubation center?
Well, again, depending on where it is and who is running it, the fees could vary. In
Mm.
many cases,
Mm.
these incubation centers are offered free of cost
Three.
for a
Mm.
duration of maybe 1 year to 2 years.
Mm.
So again, the cost that is borne for that
Mm.
is either funded by the government of Karnataka or government of India,
Mm.
or by the organization which is hosting this incubation center. They take care of the cost because they want to promote entrepreneurship in their region. So
Mm.
because of that, you undergo a process of selection. You apply
Mm.
for a particular incubation center.
Okay. Mm.
You go through an interview process. You get selected, and then you get incubated in that particular incubation center for a period
Mm.
of maybe 1 year or 2 years, depending on
Mm.
the policy of that startup incubator. You
Mm.
will be getting all these facilities free of cost.
Okay. So, sir, I consider someone is in Hubli or Belgaum or Davangere. He has to just search a nearest incubation center, or he has to go
Yeah.
to big cities only.
I think you can at least get started immediately with your regional incubation center. You could do your research and find out which is, the one that can give you best. And
Mm-hmm.
again, there are, depending on the business idea you're working on,
Mm-hmm.
different incubation centers may be of help to you.
Okay.
Example, if you are working on some kind of an agricultural problem,
Mm.
then maybe an incubation center that is run by an agri college, or
Mm.
some Dharwad Agricultural University, or
Mm.
something like that will be more beneficial, because you will be getting access to all their laboratories, their expertise, the staff, the professors, the institute, everything.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
Okay.
working on something to do with tech, then you might try to find out an incubation center in that area, working or helping startups in that segment.
Mm-hmm.
So incubation centers also have their own vision.
Mm.
Depending on who is starting it, they will
Mm.
have their own vision. And some incubation centers are sector agnostic,
Mm.
meaning they don't restrict startups into any particular sector. They are open
Sector.
for all
All sector.
startups.
Mm.
So you can take up those also. If
Okay.
you are a very high tech material science startup,
Mm.
I'm working on a very niche product as part of my next startup idea called Hex Lattice Materials,
Mm.
where we are working on synthesis of graphene and applications of graphene. Now, this is a startup where we depend heavily on material science. We
Mm.
require access to state of the art
Mm.
material analytical instruments.
Mm.
So we are looking for incubation centers like IISc Bangalore or NCL Pune, and other material science based incubation centers, right?
Mm.
For us, incubation centers in IIM or incubation centers in other parts of the country, uh,
Mm.
while they can give us access to funding or access to mentoring,
Mm.
they may not be able to give us access to the technical expertise that we will require for building our idea.
Mm.
So that's
Okay.
why one has to choose, for my idea and for my startup, which is the best incubation center that I can
Mm.
choose, and what are their requirements, expectations. Do I suit it? Do I fit in that bill? And then I apply for it.
Okay.
And
Again,
there's
there
no
is a
hard and
myth.
fast rule. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
There's no hard and fast rule that you should only be incubated by one incubation center. In most
Okay.
cases, they are open to the idea that you are incubated in one place, in
Mm.
regional places, and you're also incubated in another incubation
Yeah.
center.
Yeah. Again, there is a myth in students' minds that if you are a coder, a developer, only then you can think of a startup. Is it necessary like that? Because there is edtech, there is fintech, there is a
No.
lot of techs coming off.
Yeah. So no, that's a very narrow understanding of what a startup is.
Mm,
Startup is, anything but coding.
mm,
I mean, yes, if you are a coder and if your idea is to build something based on a code,
mm,
then you need coding expertise, either yourself or you bring somebody in your team who can code well.
mm,
But that's not the only kind of startup. You can have
mm,
a startup where you are, not building an app, but you're
mm,
building some product. It could be a new generation pen. It could be a new generation audio system. It could be some kind of a new way of helping disabled people or
mm,
specially abled people. It could be anything.
mm,
To anything. Like I told you, the idea that we are working on at Hexlatis has got nothing to do with coding. It's
mm,
everything to do with physics. It is everything to do with material science,
mm,
and at atomic level, what happens in those
mm,
materials. It is that
mm,
startup. So we have
mm.
nothing to do with coding, but still,
Okay.
it's a startup.
Mm. Okay.
So
Yeah, I
yeah,
understand. And there are some important terms where all the startups use, especially these words like valuation. What's your
yeah,
valuation? What is dividend, equity? At least these three, if you can explain, valuation, equity,
yeah.
dividend, and exit also. These four.
Um, Yeah, what has happened is the whole environment of startups has now taken a shape where perhaps there is a default thinking in the mind of a startup founder that I have to get funded
Mm,
and I have to raise funds, either through grants or through investments from investors. Only then I become a successful startup,
mm,
which is not true. There
mm,
are great success stories who have become huge without any funding at all.
mm.
And one of the most recent examples is
Zerodha.
Zoho, and then you have Zerodha,
Zerodha. Mm,
right? So you have stories where they have become huge enterprises
mm,
without raising any funding.
mm,
But again, a caution that it is not easy, it is not normal in the current times to build an idea into an enterprise without funding.
mm,
It is more normal to raise fund and grow in the current scenario.
mm,
And simply because the entire ecosystem is looking at funding as a way to grow.
mm,
So if you are working on an idea and you want to go organic and no funding and you're building that organically,
mm,
meanwhile, some other competitor comes in and he has a better way to put it across and
mm.
get funded. Uh, in all probability, you will be overtaken very, very easily
Yeah,
by the funded startup.
correct.
So that is why if you think that funding can, again, it's very critical for you to evaluate whether
Mm,
funding can accelerate the growth of the
mm,
startup or not.
mm,
If there is XYZ business idea where funding is not going to really help scale fast, but there is some other ingredient which you
mm,
have mastered,
mm,
and you can still go with organic and grow,
mm,
like perhaps Zerodha did. If
mm,
you have something like that, some model
mm,
like that, which can
mm,
work on its own, then
mm,
great. If
mm,
you think more funds is going to mean more growth,
mm,
then you better consider raising funds. You
mm,
better consider getting funded. Number one.
mm, mm.
So funding comes. Now, when you want to raise fund, obviously the next question comes is, how much fund should I take and how
Correct.
much of my company should I give away
Mm,
for that fund?
mm,
So, which means you will have to find out what is the value of my company,
mm,
right? So, what is the value of my total company?
mm,
So, if I take a portion of that money from someone, then I
mm,
have to give a portion of my company to that person. So,
mm,
that's where the whole thing of valuation comes.
mm,
So valuation is a process of evaluating what are you worth as a
mm,
company, as an idea, as a startup at any given
mm,
point of time. And that is a huge subject. It depends on multiple factors. It depends on the novelty of your idea. It depends on your team that you have. It
mm,
depends on what is the market you're playing in. It depends on how revolutionary is your idea. It depends on what are the other solutions that the customers have and how price competitive you're going to be. It depends on
mm,
so many factors, and what is the
mm,
entry barrier if competition wants to come in. All of
mm,
it then decides how unique you are. And they will, and at what stage are you? Are you in a stage where you're making some revenue? Are you in a stage where you are still not launched? So there are hundreds of factors, and then on top of all the factors, there is the investor's gut feeling. So your value gets a particular value. Your company gets a particular value. Then you say, okay, my company value is 1 crore in today's date, and I'm looking for 10 lakh. So that means I'm going to give you 10% of my company. So that 10% of the company that you give is called as equity. You are basically giving an equity in your company to these investors to the extent of investment they bring. Sorry, in relation to the value of your company.
How about dividend and exit?
So yeah, see, when you give certain amount of equity in your company to the investor, so let's say he holds 10% of the equity in your company, and you are building the business, and let's say at some point you start making profits. Now you are a 90% equity holder, and the investor is 10% equity holder in the company. And let's say the investor is not working, you are working for the startup. And because you're working, you would perhaps be drawing a salary or remuneration on a monthly basis. But there is a capping to that salary. There is a reasonable comparison to what anybody at that level would be earning. And accordingly, even though you are the founder, even though you are the owner of the company to the 90% extent, the concept of I am the owner goes off.
Correct.
When you bring in an equity investor. In fact, it's not looked at in the very positive spirit when you say I'm the owner of the company. Right? You are one of the shareholders of the company. You're one of the part to the company promoters team. And after that remuneration that you're drawing, let's say your company is making great profits, you want to take those profits, then there is something called as dividend that is declared. Let's say you make 100 rupees and then you decide 10 rupees you will give back to the shareholders, which includes you and the investors both. So you give away that 10 rupees or 10% of the profits that you made in the form of dividend. And the 10 rupees gets divided in the ratio of your shareholding in most cases. Right? So being a 90% shareholder, you will get 9 rupees. Being a 10% shareholder, the investor gets 1 rupee.
1 rupee.
If you declare 10 rupees as dividend. So dividend is the excess cash that you do not want to use in the company. In many cases, companies want to reuse that dividend to grow the company even larger. But in cases where there is excess fund more than what you require for your growth plan, you give it back to your shareholders so that they can decide what they want to do with that money. So that payment of money or the profits to the shareholders is called as dividend. And coming to the point of exit, it's you told the investor, my company is worth 1 crore, you give me 10 lakh and I give you 10%. Then he said, everything fine, I give you 10 lakh, I took 10%. When will I be able to get my money back? Right? So that is when you give him an exit. So exit essentially is when the investor gets relief from his shareholding and he gets compensated for it. That's an exit.
Okay. So exit value keeps changing, isn't it?
It changes depending on when you are giving the exit to the person.
So one more question here. Sorry to interrupt. Exit can be initiated from both the end or only a person who has invested?
It can be initiated by both technically, but the exit is possible only if there is a new buyer. What is an exit? Exit is basically whatever 10% shares the person is holding, he wants to give it back and he wants to get paid for those shares. Now the time at which he invested, your value was 1 crore, so he got those 10% shares for 10 lakh rupees. Let's say after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the line, he want to sell those same 10% shares to someone and get paid 1 crore for it. At that time, your value, let's say, is become 10 crore. Now, for him to sell those shares and get 1 crore, there has to be a buyer who will buy those shares at 1 crore. You as a promoter and having 90% shareholding, if you have enough cash with you, like in 4 years, if you have earned personally, to that extent of 1 crore through dividend or through salary or through some other source, you have enough money of 1 crore, you could buy back those shares from the investor.
Okay.
If you don't have, then what is the other option you're left with? You bring a bigger investor, and the bigger investor comes in, and perhaps at that time you dilute some more in your company, and he takes, let's say, just for discussion, he takes 20% and brings 2 crore investment. 1 crore goes into the company, and he gets 10% from the company, and 1 crore goes to that other investor, and he buys his shares. So essentially, he will get investment of 2 crore he makes, and he gets 20% of the company. And the first investor who had invested at 10 lakh rupees, he got his money back at 1 crore and he exited.
Okay. So, but the question here is, if
There
he's
are many
not willing to
possibilities.
exit, if he's not willing to
No,
exit, then
it's always mutual. If he is
okay.
not willing to exit, it's not possible.
Okay.
It's simply not possible. It's like once he's invested and become a shareholder, he's a partial owner, unless
Yeah,
you
as
have an
owner.
agreement in place, where in that agreement you have mentioned what is the exit clause and how will the exit happen and what are the authorities and rights of each party. You will have to abide by that. But generally, a equity shareholder, you cannot have a forced exit. It's only when the shareholder is willing to exit, he can exit.
Yes. Okay. So my next question is, I have an idea. So will I get funds only for my idea because I don't have any money? Will the government fund me, or any angel investor just fund for my idea without me having any money?
It's very hard, but theoretically possible. Getting funded on an idea, there are government schemes where definitely there is a room for you to do this, and there is funding available if your idea is really genuine and it has all the merits, and you have figured out all the elements of that idea. You can go in for things like Nidhi Prayas or Elevate Karnataka, and there are Startup India Fund. All these fundings are available. But getting funded from an investor only on the idea is pretty tough, pretty tough.
I understand.
Because then you will have to be somebody who is already proven his ability as an entrepreneur. Maybe you have built a company and you have sold the company, and now you are starting on another idea, and you're pitching that idea to other investors. They don't have a doubt on your abilities because you already built something and sold. So they just need to evaluate the idea. In many cases, even if the idea is great, if the founder is a new founder, he's never experienced an entrepreneur's life, there are a lot of doubts in the minds of the investor, because an idea is very easy to get. They, in the startup world, we say ideas are dime a dozen. Like for every one dime you pay, you will get 12 ideas, 1 dozen ideas. So ideas are not really great. But the execution is what is important. So entrepreneurship is all about execution. Yeah.
Now, regarding the Elevate or any government fund, even there, I think the idea should be registered. A company should be registered. Now,
yes,
what is the best way of getting registered? There is partnership, there is proprietor, there is private limited, one person company. What do you think? What's the best and the safest?
See, in most cases, the type of company you will register depends largely on what is your vision, what is it that you are trying to achieve. That it is just a vehicle. What you do will not change. What you do will be the same, irrespective of whether you are a proprietorship company, you are private limited, partnership, LLP, anything. But you need to understand the pros and cons of each type before you pick and choose the one for you. Many of the government schemes or departments, before granting you fund, they expect you to start at least a partnership firm or LLP. They have very clear guidelines, simply because the proprietorship firm is not treated as an independent entity. It is treated as the person himself.
Mm.
That is why the fund movement and transactions are not restricted
Mm.
between the person and the proprietorship firm.
Mm.
And that many of the government agencies which give you grant, they don't like it.
Mm.
They want a clear transaction track and maintaining of that discipline between the company and you as a founder.
Mm.
That's why they insist on either a partnership or a LLP or a private limited, because these entities are treated as a separate entity.
Mm. Okay.
In proprietorship firm, the entity is not treated as a separate entity. It
Mm.
is considered as the owner itself.
But how about one person company? Is that similar to that of proprietor?
No,
One
one
person.
person company is a completely different format. It's
Mm.
a proper separate legal entity.
Mm.
It's same like a private limited company. It is registered with the Minister of Corporate Affairs, but it has only one shareholder and one director.
Mm.
And its format, but compliance, everything is from the MCA. And
Mm.
for all practical purposes of transactions, it is treated as a separate legal entity. So OPC is also fine, but proprietorship is different.
So OPC, if I am a OPC, am I eligible to get funds? Will they have trust on me?
It depends on the scheme. If you are
Mm.
OPC, then in many ways you are the single decision maker.
Mm.
You could still mismanage or not have the required
Correct.
discipline for corporate governance.
Mm.
So it depends on the body which is giving the grant, whether they accept OPC or not. But
Mm.
in most cases, it is accepted because it's a separate legal entity.
Mm.
It's not just the same legal entity. So they can enforce certain discipline. That's why
Mm.
it could be allowed, but you'll have to check it with each granting agency every time.
Mm. Mm.
But to keep the compliance cost low and to keep
The risk
to be
also low.
eligible to many of these schemes, etc.
Mm.
I
Mm.
think the newest format, that is LLP partnership, suits best for most people.
Okay.
If they are one or more than one partners, I mean, more
Mm.
than one partners, of course. So even in cases where you don't have another co-founder, you could perhaps start with somebody in your family or friend circle to begin with, and
Mm.
bring in the actual co-founder as soon as you have them. But that
Mm.
would enable you to be eligible for many things.
Mm. Okay. So now regarding this co-founder thing, very important. I have seen a lot of funds being given to people who are having co-founders, which is a private limited company. And
Mhm.
I've heard podcast of even Aman Gupta, the founder of Boat. Even he
Mhm.
said that he changed his life because of the co-founder, and he found his co-founder on LinkedIn. But in
Mhm.
reality, it's very difficult to find like-minded people or people who have opposite skills, the trustworthiness. In this
Yeah.
case, I think even you had your friend there. But my experience, I have failed in this situation at least twice now.
No,
So what's your
some partnerships work wonders. Some partnerships go some length and they don't work.
mm,
Like in our case, also we started great and we had a wonderful thought process. But one of the major missing link in our co-founding team between me and my co-founder and a great friend Nilesh, is that both of us were exceptional in our own technical abilities,
mm-hmm,
but we did not bring the complementary skills that were required for building a business.
mm-hmm,
We had a similar skill sets, of
mm,
course, in different domain,
mm,
but that could have been much different if the other guy was a business guy, if the other
mm,
guy was a finance guy,
correct. Mm,
other guy was a product or a different skill set guy. So
mm,
that's what I think keeps the two elements stuck together, two or three
mm,
co-founders that come.
mm,
And funding comes preferably to a company with co-founders, simply
mm,
because there is more than one shoulder to take care of the company.
correct. Mm,
And second, there is a healthy sounding board that is there.
mm,
A debate will happen, and it's
mm,
not unilateral thought process. If there is a single founder, it doesn't get the required sounding board.
mm,
So having said that, if in exceptional cases, even single founder companies are considered, but in most cases, yes, you're right. A co-founder presence really
mm,
helps give a
mm.
different outlook to the startup.
So somewhere I'm feeling it is a gamble now these days to have co-founders believe in someone. It goes well, sir, but with time it might differ and there is huge conflict. Instead of running business, we just end up in courts.
Not necessarily. Again, there are some bitter stories, of course, and examples where it will deter you from thinking about a co-founder, but it has more plus side than
Yes,
minus
it
side
has.
in general.
Mm.
And you will have more success stories than the failed stories as co-founders. And you don't jump at any one particular situation and one person say, okay, this is going to be my co-founder. It's not a pick randomly. It will require you to build a rapport, build a relationship, understand the ideologies, the backgrounds, what kind of thought process comes from each one of them. So with all that, then you start framing your idea about getting the person onboarded, right? As a person who would contribute and act like a good shoulder-to-shoulder partner for you.
Yeah.
So nothing is an assured thing that what will work. That's why investors also insist on something called as a co-founders agreement. They insist on having a written agreement of how the co-founding team will work, who will be the decision maker, who will be the majority shareholder, what will happen if there is a disagreement, who will take the call, how will they resolve any disagreement. All this is outlined in the agreement so that you don't leave it on time, you don't leave it on future. So it's all now happening with a very, very healthy system.
So you have to catch hold of company secretary to make all these.
Yeah. And there are, of course, formats available. You have got legal forms available.
I remember in my initial days, sir, I didn't know whom to approach also. These days, I understand the difference between CA and company secretary. So yes, with time only we understand a lot.
Exactly. That is where your these ecosystems help you. No, they give you a quick summary of who is what happens, what are the compliances and requirements. That at least you should quickly gather before you jump into the waters.
The association matters. We have to be associated with them.
Yeah, and there are many online courses. You can take up any course that can give you an overview of what this whole world is.
So last two questions.
Yeah.
Okay. One is a view about Byju is considered to be the highest valued company in India for startup, but it is also considered the most hated company. Everywhere you see a lot of videos made on Byju's being scams. And also, if you see all the 100 unicorns of India, the startups, 70% or more are still in loss. And how will a youngster get motivation to still start?
So it's a very deeper subject, a startup or a company in loss. By any traditional reference, they're in bad shape. If a company is making loss after 5 years, after 6 years, after 7 years, even if the revenue is 100 crore or 500 crore, they're still making loss. Any traditional businessman would say they are sleeping. Means something is seriously wrong. But however, the new way of thinking, the new way of looking at it, which I'm not saying is the right way, but the way it is projected and conceived is that we want to capture customers. We want to create a customer base who will be loyal to us and who will continue to be with us. And we want to take the top line, which is the sales or revenue, to a very large number. And we will suddenly become profitable at a particular sale value. Although we are not profitable at 500 crore or 1000 crore or 5000 crore, at 20,000 crore, we are going to become profitable because at that particular scale, there is something called as economy of scale. So at that particular scale, all my costs, all my overheads, all my things will be taken care and I will start making profit. And from day one, I'll be making huge profits, not peanuts. Now, that is a story that most of these unicorns will have, and that is a logic that they would be working, and they are striving, and they are very ambitiously, aggressively working towards it. Right? So you cannot say it's a wrong logic. Now, the only thing is, what will you do? How will you sustain until you become profitable. Until you become profitable, you need money to keep pumping for salaries, for expenditures, for all the costs to be taken care, because your value is less than your burning value or your costs. So the difference of that, which is the loss, you need to keep generating money. So that's what they keep doing in multiple rounds of funding. The funding keeps happening, and because the revenues are growing, the valuation is growing. For lesser dilution, you get more money. You bring all that amount, and then essentially you will keep growing on your top line and your number of customers that you have. To take a case of saying 70% are in loss, that doesn't say anything. I mean, what you need to see is whether these 70% people are progressively growing on the revenues. Is the management very clear about where they're heading? Although some people will not agree that this is the right way to go, to keep growing without making profit. Many founders and entrepreneurs believe in making profit from day one. Maybe yes, first 1 year, 2 year you make losses, understandable, but then you should turn profitable immediately. And then you keep growing. Investment you raise, but that investment should be to expand, not to fund the losses. So there are different ideologies, but we cannot very clearly prove which is right, which is wrong. Both have their own viewpoints, and it has its own upside also. And taking individual cases like Byju's, you will have many examples where you'll have such situations. The problem with media and public is that if you succeed very fast, you will become a celebrity very fast. They would make you a celebrity. If there are problems, they are also bloated out of proportion without getting into facts, and you are made like a villain immediately. Whether it's cricket, whether it's movies, whether it's startup, I think we'll get to see such phenomena. Having said that, I'm not saying what Byju's did is great, or I'm not saying that whatever now Byju's is doing is very bad. It's a company, and there are a lot of challenges that the founders need to handle. So one needs to be very measured and very careful in their growth plan. That's all I can say. During the growth plan, you become very aggressive, and you have not taken care of certain things, then they will come to bite you. When the scale is high and when things go out of control, they come to trouble you, and then very soon you will be unable to control it from going viral and then create a negative publicity. And that's what is, I think, happening to Byju's. They grew very exponentially, they grew very fast, and perhaps growth was the only parameter when they were growing. And quality of teachers, quality of trainings that they were providing to their customers, customer feedback, how they are loving Byju's, all that I think took a sidestep, during that process, which now is become a big challenge to tackle. So one needs to be very, very controlled and balanced about these things, no matter what speed you want to grow. But in that speed of growth, never leave the fundamentals. Right? Fundamentals of any business are very simple. Your product has to be a good quality product. Your service has to be a good quality service. Your customers have to be happy, right? And your employees have to be happy. Your profit growth has to start kicking in as soon as possible. So these are some of the fundamentals. If you ignore them, then they will grow to a very huge size, which you cannot handle easily.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
I'm sure the leadership team at Byju's is competent.
Yeah.
I hope they will figure out how to get out of this and still continue to be one of the best valued company, because that's good for the startup ecosystem. It's not good for the startup ecosystem that such huge startups fail. So I hope they succeed, they recover from this.
Yes. So coming to the last question, very simple question. What would you advise yourself if you were a 21-year-old now with the maturity and experience of yours? What would you advise Mr. Prakash himself, who is 21-year engineer who is out of college? What right or bad decisions which you would advise not to?
Three things I would say. Don't be afraid to dare and take a step. Second, chase your passion. irrespective of how mature, immature, what you think is right or wrong. Just chase your dreams. And third is, as soon as possible, try to catch hold of a mentor, a coach, or a good startup ecosystem where you can spend time.
Correct.
Because that's going to be the guiding light for you, your chasing passion. So these three things I would advise, and rest will happen.
Correct.
Yeah, dare to dream, dare to follow, and then chase your passion, and then catch hold of a good guiding light as a mentor or as a coach going forward.
Okay. Now, regarding mentors also, some students are afraid that to share their ideas to everyone, will they copy? In that case,
Yeah,
what's your advice?
that's a stupid idea. They should get over it as soon as possible, because as I told you, ideas are dime a dozen. For every paisa, we should perhaps say ideas are paise a dozen. Every paisa you'll get dozen of ideas. There are hundreds of ideas. Somebody is a creative thinker. He can sit under a tree and keep churning ideas every minute. But those ideas have zero value unless they are executed. And fortunately, nobody other than the founder with the passion for that idea has the ability to execute that idea. No amount of money
Correct.
can replace the founder's passion and his ability to execute that
Exactly.
idea. Hence, this whole thing of somebody copying the idea is down the drain. Even if somebody want to copy, and let them go and do it, they will not be able to match the
Yeah.
energy that you have. Only thing is, you should not miss on seeking and getting all the resources that you need. You should not be slow. You should not be hesitant to ask for help. You should not be hesitant to get the right mentors, coaches, funding, investors, right customers, right infrastructure. All of it, you should go all out.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
That's
Thank
what I
you.
would say.
Thank you so much. I'm sure students and people who are listening might have enlightened to the next level, because I myself, not even as a youngster, even at this age, last year also, if I would have listened to this own podcast of ours, I would be
Yeah.
enlightened to a larger level. Thank you so
Hope
much,
so.
sir, for
Thank
giving
you.
your time and your knowledge.
Thank you. Thanks for this session. I hope it will be beneficial to the students and wannabe entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much for watching this podcast till the end. I hope this video, this content, this podcast added value in your life. Please like if you have liked the video, and please comment your opinion, your suggestions, and your views about this content. And please share it to your friends, and especially to the students who wish to have startup as their career. Thank you very much.